The gaming industry tends to develop in cycles. A successful game launch and suddenly everyone rushes to create something similar, hoping to grab a piece of the pie. After one MOBA succeeds, new ones sprout like mushrooms after rain. Battle royales became popular and developers raced to release their own versions. Today we are looking at something a bit different, an extraction shooter. While the genre hasn't seen overwhelming success, with the Escape from Tarkov being perhaps the most notable example, it was not enough to inspire numerous clones, some successful, others less so. Today we'll try to determine which category SYNDUALITY Echo of the Other falls into. What sets SYNDUALITY apart from other extraction shooters is its mecha action elements. Instead of waiting out on foot, you are a pilot of walking battle vehicle called a sarcophagus. Your one journey along either will be accomplished by an AI partner called Magus. The game takes place in the post-apocalyptic world in the distant year, many years after a devastating event known as the Tears of the New Moon. Most of the Earth's population was destroyed and creatures called Enders appears. Humanity was forced to seek shelter in underground bunkers, from which brave explorer Drifter ventured to surface to gather materials and harvest valuable energy-rich AO crystals. It feels like a game was initially conceived as a single-player or cooperative experience. However, at some point someone intervened and decided it should be a PvE extraction shooter. Elements of the original concept remain in the single-player investigation in old Amazia missions. Completing this unlocks cutscenes that reveals the world backstory and shed light of the fall of the Amazia, the main city of this humanity's new era, whose ruins now serve as a shelter for survivors. Unfortunately, the game lacks localization in several languages, which may diminish some of its better qualities. While not critically important for SYNDUALITY overall, it can negatively impact the experience since the premise becomes completely incomprehensible for non-English speakers. The gameplay is fairly typical for this genre. You assemble your sarcophagus, place your magus inside, and head to the surface. Your time there is limited by your Mechs speculation, reactor power, durability, rain protection, and cargo capacity. SYNDUALITY unique elements is a rain system. Periodically, acidic rainfall hits various regions of the map, killing all living things. This rain will corrode your sarcophagus protection, and it gets destroyed. You can kiss the surface goodbye. When it starts raining, you have two options: wait it out in natural shelters or use patch to restore your protection in the field. However, hiding isn't always beneficial, especially if you're hunting for your crystals. During rainfall their quality improves, but enders become more aggressive and stronger. You will have to struggle to the crystals in the rain and use available inventory slot for a patches. Space, or more precisely wave, is extremely problematic here. Your sarcophagus cargo capacity is arguably the most important element. I can't recall other games in this genre where this bothered me so much. It would be one thing only weapons, ammunition and loot items had weight, but not even the sarcophagus farms themselves occupy valuable capacity. Why? Who become up with this madness, especially considering the all parts I encountered in the game had identical mass. Why couldn't they simply reduce the carrying capacity by the sum of the robot parts? Why implement the nonsense with a basic overweight of 14 or for some models even 16? As a result, you ended up going on expedition with a maximum useful load of no more than 15. Even if you only take a couple of ammo boxes. More advanced sarcophagus types have increased weight limits, but you will need to unlock them first. Moreover, may have disadvantage on their parameter, so we won't be able to breathe freely. Most expeditions are straightforward. You move from the exit point to the evacuation site, collecting everything valuable along the way, and occasionally fighting off enemies. But even then you will almost always have to decide whether to abandon current needed resource in favor of more valuable ones you might need in the future. You can assemble different types of sarcophagi for various tasks, removing unnecessary elements to lighten the structure. For cutting, you might want to ditch the drill needed for the EO crystal collection and replace it with more powerful and heavier weapons. For material gathering expedition, you can do this without weapon almost entirely, while for EO crystal one, something in between works best. Enemies attack whatever you drill something. Once you have enough customization option for your sarcophags, this becomes very engaging. Each mech type offers unique bonuses for different parts, plus perks for assembling a complete set. You will need to choose between focusing on complete set bonuses or individual bonuses from each type. Some components even offer bonuses that can reduce the weight of carried weapons by about 10%. However, most of these variations severely limit your survivability. Roll Division could fix this, but there is no proper comparative mode, which is strange for PvP extraction shooter. During pre-release testing, players could form a team before expeditions. However, this feature was removed from the final version. To start comparative gameplay and complete joint missions, you first need to find another player on the surface, approach them, and propose teaming up. If they agree, you will form a temporary team and only then begin the mission. Half the time you will be rejected and at worst shot in back. In other cases, you might face betrayal at the mission's conclusion. Want to explore the Westerland with your online friends? It's not possible. Even if you start an expedition simultaneously and agree to meet a specific location, your chance of ending up on the server is minimal. This approach kills the game's appeal for casual players. Turking the haven for toxic introverts, for them it's a paradise. There is no way to completely avoid encounters with hostile factions. At some point you will be forced onto disputed territories, where you can quickly lose everything you will be painfully collected. The weapon balance is such that you will die from the sniper shots without any change to counter them. It's especially frustrating to lose rare sarcophagus parts and weapons, as recovering them will take hours of gameplay. The meta progression of your drifter character is slow. Some might see this as an adventure. Unlike other games such as Escape from Tarkov, SYNDUALITY doesn't throw you straight into battle, but gradually introduce you to the game world. However, this introduction pace is artificially slowed. To unlock new game features, including sarcophagi and weapons, you need to complete missions and, most importantly, upgrade your garage. Many missions have conditions like delivering a dozen components to the base. If you are lucky, you can extract everything in one expedition, otherwise even a dozen runs might not be enough. Garage upgrades also require an insane amount of resources, turning gameplay into endless and exhausting grinding. Sometimes collecting resources for a single upgrade might require dozens of expeditions, followed by several hours of fabricator work as they assemble the necessary components from the resource. As a result, 90% of players abandon SYNDUALITY before accessing even half of its future. They probably won't even learn about the completing organization you can play for, but why talk about factions when you won't even understand why they, so-called drifter, are forced to explore vast lands, searching for valuable crystals and fighting local monsters and other players. They won't reach the point where the main map expands or can access to the second region, and they won't discover any conspiracy theory revealed in the story segments. Well, actually the story cutscenes are tied to a single player mission, so they can be unlocked and viewed relatively quickly. The game interface is also disappointing. To be precise, controlling the mech is fine and quite intuitive, but menu navigation is painful. Clearly designed for keyboard and mouse, making it very difficult to use with a controller. There are no quick transition between different sections. You will be constantly forced to use a virtual mouse. Sometimes you will need to press OK button, which even displays a controller button icon, but it doesn't work until you hover the cursor over it. It feels like many menu items were tacked into the game at the last minute without consideration for proper interaction. Another interesting feature of SYNDUALITY is your Magus companion is self-learning artificial intelligence. It not only comments on events happening around you, but also remembers places where you found rare resources or specific enemy types, marking them on the map for a future expedition. Upon returning to the base, Mechs conduct a debriefing, showing the exploration process step by step and commenting on what happened and where. Overall, this feature isn't particularly useful, but it's quite amusing. Your AI companion also adds customization options. Several appearance variants are available, as well as the ability to dress them in different outfits. Mechs not only helps with chores at the base, making improvements, cleaning, cooking, and so on, but also support you during expedition. There are several types of companions. Some predict weather and protect from acidic rain, others assist in battles against enemies, and third type speeds up the repairs. You should choose a specific Mechs type for each expedition. However, there's one problem. Without a microtransaction, it's practically impossible to obtain a second Mechs or charge the first one types. Occasionally, story mission will reward you with a Mechs creation ticket, but these are very rare, and I haven't encountered any missions that allow changing specialization or appearance. Such an approach might be forgivable for any free-to-play project, but in paid game it seems very strange. For what appears to be an P2P model, the oddies don't stop at paid tickets for any Mechs companions or setting changes. There are also a battle pass and premium sarcophagus version sold for real money, and these aren't just skins, but a ready-made sarcophagi that you can lose during an expedition. True, some come with a blueprints for assembly, but this pushes the game further into pay-to-win territory, as the best parts are available into the pass. I am not sure if there are any way to obtain these blueprints otherwise. Whatever decide to include actual items rather than cosmetics in the season pass, and who come up with the selling sarcophagus part for real money, deserves a special place in the hell. Buy a mech for $50, then get killed, receiving only in-game currency compensation, and that's only if you had insurance. This resembles Electronic Arts' old idea of selling ammunition. If ever just cosmetics, we could turn a blind eye, but items can be permanently lost in an successful expedition is too much. This is truly unfortunate because controlling the mech delivers general pleasure. They possess high maneuverability, allowing for sharp dashes, dodging attacks, and ambushing from elevated position. Mech behavior depends on type and load level. If minimally loaded, the robot moves quickly across the map and barely overheats. If loaded to half capacity, it struggles with turns and you feel its inertia. And if you load your sarcophagus to 100%, it becomes completely unwieldy. Therefore, before a decisive battle, it's advisable to temporarily remove Axis Wave to increase maneuverability. However, in most battles, you will simply fire at opponents, only occasionally using abilities. The shooting mechanism is satisfying thanks to the wide arsenal of weapons, divided into the energy and kinetic types. The game looks decent. The mechs are unique and meticulously detailed, and the parts are detailing and is impressive. The same applies to the enemies. However, the environment is rather dull. The world feels directly visually. Of course, there are some nice location pieces, but overall everything is too standard. We are presented with a typical post-apocalyptic setting without any distinguished features, and there's only two locations, each about 10 km in size. Moreover, later you will only have access to one location, consisting of these two plus of a couple of new areas, so you will constantly wander through the same places. We could also nitpick about emerging inconsistencies, like the broken ceiling in the garage, through which you can see the sky, in a world where the rain kills and people suddenly live deep underground, but the music is a pleasure to hear. Unlike the general world picture, it's not typical for post-apocalypse, but taken from the quality science fiction. Trophy and achievements hunter should stay away from this game, while the conditions for obtaining them are fairly simple. The time required to complete them is considerable. One trophy requires earning almost 8 million of the local currency by selling a O crystal. For a rich expedition playing as a OS association faction, you will rarely get more than 5 grand. You could switch to BM, Black Market faction, where they pay generously, but they have more freedom to PvP, and constantly you change of not returning from the expedition increase. So in the conclusion, SYNDUALITY Echo of Ida present an intriguing concept with its blend of mecha combat and extraction shooter elements, but is bogged down by design decision that seems to actively work against the player enjoyment. The satisfying mech controls and combat can fully compensate for the frustrating weight management, forced PvP, excessive grinding, and questionable monetization practice. What could have been a fresh take on the extraction shooter genre instead feels like a missed opportunity, like to be abandoned by most players before they can experience its full potential. Thank you for watching. Please try it yourself.